Right, warm welcome again. My name is Jennifer Taylor, and I'm one half of the Psychic Phoenix, and my daughter Emma is the other half, who's due to have a little baby at the end of April. So it's exciting times here in Mountain Mowbray, but I'm so excited and happy to welcome Ola Wunley back onto my YouTube channel. I'm just going to read down what I wrote because usually I go off track when I say things. But in July the 21st, 2023, which was about 8 months ago, I had the pleasure to chat with Ola Wunley about the sacred feminine wisdom, which has really utterly changed my outlook on life. She has created an umbrella, which is called the Self-Mastery Quest, which is a path to freedom. Ola is a researcher of ancient knowledge since childhood, and she shares her wisdom of the sacred mystical knowledge and astrology in the courses that she holds, the webinars, consultations, and the events that she holds in the beautiful Norway. She represents the line of old feminine wisdom teaching, where all the answers are revealed to those with eyes to see and ears to hear. And one of the quotes that she shares on her webpage, which really resonates with me, is if something burns your soul with purpose and desire, it's your duty to be reduced to ashes by it. Any other form of existence would be yet another dull book in the library of life. So a warm welcome, Ola. Thank you so much for joining me again tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to go deeper into our conversations from last time and beyond. Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you. You have been extremely, extremely busy the last year, haven't you? Could we start off with talking a little bit about, these opportunities for people from all over the world to come to Norway and to experience the enchanted land that you now live on?
Absolutely. And yes, indeed, it has been very, very busy, but in a good way busy. I've so far I held three events, but two of them were in Norway. In June, in November, and such a different energy. There's such a different energy here between the summer and winter. Slightly different theme. The winter one was open for everybody, as in for men as well. The June one was kind of kept a little bit in that mystery school, feminine alchemy for ladies only. So such a profound experience for me to be able to introduce to welcome people from other places and to introduce them to this land, introduce them to the spirits of this land. I think Norway is one of those places, especially here up north. I'm in the Arctic. We are really far up north here. This is probably one of those places, and I've been around, to many. I still believe and I still deeply feel that this is probably one of those last places where you really live between, the veil is very thin and you kind of live between worlds. And this is what I really, really love for people to experience. And I honestly think that, this is not just me with my good marketing speech about the region. There's truly something here, because some of the people who came to the events last year, and this is not one person, we're talking three, and actually one more couple from Poland. They actually looking to move, and one person's already moved to Norway. So and the other couple, they moving as well. They moving to this region. So there is definitely something, I kid you not, something here that is deeply speaking to people on many levels. It's an amazing transformational land. The energy of this place is not only transformational, but it kind of takes you back to that primordial feeling, to that almost the original energy, to the original communion in which we used to live with the land. A little bit of a, honestly, I get that feeling here of, if anybody watched Avatar, Pandora, and how those the blue people used to live in that true communion, in that symbiosis with the land, with the spirits. I can't just tell you enough about this. It's touches deeply to the soul.
That was one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because a few maybe a month ago I spoke to another incredible lady called Sam, and she talked about connecting to the spirit of the land, and how we've lost that connection to the land, and to the elements of the sun and the rain and the wind and the rocks and the trees, that's been severed from us. So when I listened to you talk, it was beautiful, because as you were saying, that veil is very, very thin, and you're in communion to the land. That's correct, isn't it? So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, like, because obviously we're living in England, which is one of the ancient isles, have we, is it still there, Ola? Can we still?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You see, I think we have to. I honestly, I don't even know which angle should I go at this question from, but it is such an amazing question, and it's such an important one, because mind you, of course, England is amazing, Norway is amazing, but the whole world is ancient, right? So these sites are all over the place, and some of them, I understand that the energy has been really tired. And perhaps that connection is not that easily felt in some of the places. However, I mean, you know me from Gnosis, from alchemy. When Jesus says, and this is not a religious quote, there's nothing to do with religion here, this is Gnosis. When Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world, the true meaning, the alchemical meaning of this world, is that there is a world here, right here. There is a kingdom of this world from which we come, with which we are still connected. But the matrix, this fake reality that's been superimposed by certain forces that took over at some point, created a different world. So my question is always, which world are we talking about? Which world is truly real, right? And which world are we being disillusioned about? So this world, the true world, right, that our true kingdom is from, is absolutely here. But it is not the artificial, it is not the matrix world, it is the world of feeling function. This is a world that we can connect to when we are in nature. That is the world that the shamans, right? So the shamanism, and many of the ethnic and indigenous people across the world, they still live in a very deep connection to that side of the mystical forces, that side of the world. So it's absolutely available for us. And the fake world, this matrix, is doing everything they can in order to drive us away from that world, and keep us literally, right, through the use of all sorts of tools and AI. I mean, how much our life is now sort of encapsulated around a computer, a tablet, a phone, right? You don't actually need to leave your home. That's the whole agenda, right? This is how it's cooking the frog really, really slowly. So this world is available. Those mystical forces are ever present, and I think that this time now is such a special time, because this is the time that the prophecies, all of the prophecies, are talking about the end of the world, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. It is the time to restore the connection. It is the time to go back to the temple, to the true temple, and the temple is here. It is not anywhere outside. It is not the church. It is not any faith. It is not any religion. It is the temple inside of us. So through that feeling function, this is how we connect. This is how we go back and sort of commune with that real world, with those forces. I think we have lost a lot of, unfortunately, we have lost a lot of wisdom on our way. We have lost a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding about cycles, the earth, about what does it mean to live in accordance to the cycles. We have lost the wisdom around the meaning of the elements, how we connect to the elements, what the sun truly is, what the planets truly are, Venus, the meaning and the importance of Venus, and certain stars, because of course most of the planets, and you know me, I do not call myself an astrologer. Astrology is a code of the matrix, so it's a little bit like you gotta know the language of the enemy. This is how I come at astrology and numerology. You have to know what you're dealing with in terms of the coding. However, I do not represent that in any sort of benevolent capacity, if you like. So I do not advise to follow astrology in any capacity. But we definitely have lost something, but it's still available. It's still available. It's ever present to reconnect to that.
Because that was one of the things that Sam said in her interview, like, to go back outside, and we can, you know, even our gardens or a favorite place that we have the connection. And she said, like, to speak to the land, to speak and say, sorry that we've lost our connection, sorry that we betrayed you, and just turn up each day and just give just time. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, my background is engineering. I come from a sort of very, let's put grounded, you know, with the feet on the ground. So I do appreciate that there are some people that might feel like, okay, that's great, but what do we do with that, right? Like what? Show up and what? And I would tell you for sure, because you see, my journey, my kind of deepest part of my journey started when I moved up here. That was in 2017, not an accidental time. So it is literally as simple as, yes, going out there, but doing what? I think, to me, it's very often about what we should stop doing, not just about what we should start doing. So the stop doing is literally, to an extent, we need to get unplugged, because and unplugged, I don't just mean the devices, I don't mean just the physical side of things, but I literally mean that we all need to finally realize that everything that's been shown to us, everything is a show. Everything is a show. Everything is, there's an agenda. And if you want to put your energy, and I know that we all have friends on Facebook, and we all, you know, I'm talking about the people that actually kind of understand what's going on, right? But even here, there is a trap, because these people are spending enormous amounts of time on a lot of the social media, you know, getting excited about interpreting content that has been created for them to be excited about, not in a good way. So the newest kind of the newest news and the newest developments, which we obviously all know that there is an agenda behind everything, but the question is, does that change anything that you're engaging in that? Should we before we, you know, get out to the garden, and that's important, and get out to the forest, great, but do not come back from there and get back on your phone, because then the whole thing, you know what I mean, then the whole thing is just pointless. Because what we need is a shift. It's a shift in our understanding and the sort of concept of how does this matrix work. Because you see, what I'm talking about, having your feet on the ground and understanding this whole picture, going to the forest is not going to be enough unless we shift on a much deeper sort of level. And that level needs to include the fact that we need to understand that propaganda and manipulation are on both sides of the fence. So there is a propaganda and manipulation designed specifically for the so-called awakened, for the ones that think that we already have all the answers. We're being played just like everybody else. It's just that the game for us is perhaps a little bit more sophisticated and not so much based on fear. It's based on other mechanisms, right? It's kind of dangling the the next conspiracy theory in front of our nose so that we can jump on the bandwagon. And that's what we do. I think it's time to stop.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was listening to you talk, Ola, to what I was hearing, it's like, yeah, we go off into the forest or into a garden, but we don't come like plug back into what we're seeing on the TV media, and it's trusting our hearts and our wombs, isn't it? It's trusting on our inner knowledge, and being observant of what's going on, but not buying into it, because like I said to you at the very beginning, I went to have my hair cut today, and my hairdresser was telling me about how she'd been to see this therapist, and it was like the reincarnation theory, where you reincarnate in this lifetime, and she was told, like, well, you're with this person that you love because you're here to help that person, and this is part of your lesson and it's part of his lesson. And I thought, surely not, that's what life's all about. We're not just here to be servants, or it's more to life, isn't it? It's not by chance that we're here.
Absolutely. And you see, this is such a dangerous new age trap, and we have to call it for what it is. This whole notion, and it's so popular, it is so strongly sort of established out there to believe certain paradigms about how this realm looks like. It includes this whole notion of lessons, that we came here, the soul came here to learn lessons. This is deep new age. And new age, mind you, and I've said that in so many interviews, new age is a CIA controlled movement to capture people who are sort of slowly awakening, and they navigating their path. They perhaps don't really have that discernment yet, so they get very often captured, sort of hijacked and pulled into this whole on the surface attractive looking notion of love and light, etc. But really there's a lot of rotten content right underneath that's leading you astray very deeply. So this whole notion of it's mind you, everything is always a mixture of some truths with a lot of lies. So lessons, learning lessons, this is such a cunning concept, right? Because it does kind of make sense, right? It would explain a lot of things, it would explain a lot of suffering, but we already know where the suffering is coming from, and it is not coming from the fact that we need to learn lessons. This is a nonsense. This is seeking nobility in suffering. This is a very dangerous notion to go down the path of telling people that they in some capacity need to be controlled, or in some capacity they need to suffer, or they cannot live their full potential because it is part of their karma, it's part of their lesson, it's part of some kind of experience that they have to undergo. This is such a dangerous and absolutely untrue interpretation. This is totally untrue, and you see, this is part of the reason why I do not identify with astrology in a context of representing astrology to any capacity, because this is one of the languages that astrology speaks, which is you have lessons, you have certain things to overcome, your soul has chosen certain path, your soul has chosen these negative experiences. Nonsense. Your soul would never choose any negative, this whole concept is even contradictory inside of itself, because very often you will hear that the soul is unlimited, right? It's the soul is capable of anything. The soul is all encompassing. Well, if that's the truth, then why does the soul need to learn lessons? Then it doesn't make any sense, right? So be very careful who you listen to out there, because the truth is, nobody's coming here to suffer. Nobody is coming here to pay any price for anything that they've done, especially that nobody remembers anything. Nobody's here to live through any karma. Does the karma, does it exist? Yes, it does. But in what world? In the world of Maya. in the world of the illusion, the matrix. You want to sign up to that? You want to sign up to the notion of original sin? You want to sign up to the notion that you have to pay for what you've done? That's, you know, I mean, that's your choice. But is that the universal law? Is that how it is? No, it isn't. This is the matrix. This is the trick of the matrix, which is designed to keep us sort of, you know, in check, right? To block us, to stop us from fully realizing that potential, which we already embody. Our true and full potential is not some kind of faraway path to which we have to get. It is already here, but it is wrapped in the illusion of the limitations and the traumas and the blockages and the lessons and the karma and this, that, and the other. Be very careful. Be very careful, because it's, you know, I always say, have a look in there so that you understand what kind of cards the matrix is trying to deal you, what kind of perhaps repeating patterns you engage in. But do not do that under sort of understanding that that's the law and that's how it's meant to be. Do that so that you understand in what way you have been caught by this mechanism, and leave. Do not engage.
One of the other things they brand around it, like I feel like I'm going on a rant about the New Age, because we spoke about it before, like how we know we fall into that New Age because we start to awaken and we get sucked into it, and then like speaking to you last year, I realized that we then start to question even that. But the other one that they band around a lot is about one of the things I love about what you say is like, we don't need healing because we don't need to be healed. We need to peel away the lies and the untruths, isn't it? Would you agree? But the other one they band around is about healing the inner child. And I thought, surely when we arrive here, we arrive whole, perfect, and capable of so much. And that's why I love on your website that the quote that you use, focus on what burns your heart alive with your desire, and that's your purpose. That's why you're here. Would you agree like that?
Absolutely. Through some of the Gnostic and Hermetic texts, we learn that you see, again, this realm is full of so many misinterpretations on purpose, and the whole psychology standing on the fundaments of the, you know, the shadow work and the inner child and the traumas. And you're gonna, I mean, come on, people, you know, how many of us have been in therapies and we've been sitting there for donkey's years, right? and what, and nothing. We you know, good money down the drain. And of course, you know, to some extent, it might be nice for some of us to have a chit chat with someone else about our issues, but have we been fixed? Yeah, has that solved anything? Not really. And I have spoken to hundreds of people through, for example, my consultations, who have been saying the same things, right? All of us have been in some kind of therapy, didn't work. Why? Because the Gnostic texts, a lot of the ancient texts, they hint at something, which is that the subconscious is an implant. That this is an implant. And of course, you know, the language used there is not going to be so advanced, but it is to be derived from the context that this is something that gets kind of implanted, and with it we get this is part of the, if somebody heard me speak about this whole notion of how this matrix mechanism controls us, how this whole mechanism of the zodiac works and exerts control over us, that it's literally, it's a frequency control which is being streamed upon our third eye, and it's connecting to our energy field. So this is how each planet has sort of its own part, it plays its own part, because the energetic structure of the planets, this is such a amazingly Machiavellian mechanism, because it literally, this technology that these gods, these beings used, it changed the energetic imprint, the energetic structure of the planets. So the planets are now sort of working for them, apart from Venus, apart from the sun. They're working for them, for the matrix sort of controllers, and they are connecting to us. They are streaming certain frequencies. So this is why this determinism, the sort of deterministic principle, is still very much embedded into our experience. So, you know, free will, all these discussions, or everything is running by the subconscious. But what is the subconscious? Well, subconscious is exactly where this control is being sort of connecting to, right? It's being streamed at. So where I'm going with it is that when you start trying to heal, it's a never-ending process. You will be healing and healing for decades. And there will be new levels coming up, right? So the interesting thing is the feminine alchemy, which I obviously stand very strongly for, feminine alchemy, which feminine alchemy is the oldest. This is the oldest natural sort of notion in the world. Feminine alchemy gave birth to shamanism. Shamanism evolved out of feminine alchemy. And if we look to shamanism, which is obviously still practiced in a lot of indigenous people and the ethnic groups, which still perhaps are the last fortresses, the last frontiers of that original wisdom, or at least some remnants of the original wisdom, they never talk about any level of therapy, right? They never deal with any issues in a talk therapy. What they do is soul retrievals. So they know that the only way to sort of access and bring that balance is at the soul level, not at the mind level, not the talk therapy, because at the talk therapy, you're going to access consciousness, not even the subconscious. You're going to access consciousness. And you know, we know that the consciousness is perhaps what, 5, 7, 8% of the whole picture. The subconscious mind is over 90%. So really, you're not going to be able to change anything through that kind of therapy, through that kind of intervention. So the healing, which is based on anything around changing behaviors or changing some kind of patterns, if it's coming from the mind, it's just not going to do anything. So the closest to and feminine alchemy, this comes from feminine alchemy. This is not a shamanistic method originally. This comes from feminine alchemy, because the women of the past, the women from the times of Mary Magdalene, Inanna, Isis, Ishtar, Astarte, who left us this wisdom, and women before them, they were the ones that told us specifically that the problem is fragmentation of the soul. The soul, the construction of the soul looks like crystal. So whenever, and this is such an amazing sort of way of understanding this. Everything makes sense when you look at it like that, because the reason why this matrix, this world, is so obsessed with traumatizing us, with scaring us, with creating scenario to instigate fear and depression and sort of all the lowest emotions, is because in that kind of environment the soul gets fragmented. So the soul shatters. And I mean, this is the closest that we can sort of describe it with a let's say slightly technical language. So the pieces of the soul that will get shattered, they disappear. That's how we lose wholeness. And then we we need healing. But then we go about that healing in the wrong way, because you cannot retrieve the missing part at that level while talking and dealing at the mental level. So this is why the shamans, the people who would have kept the legacy of the original teachings, they would never, ever obviously consider any other therapy other than the soul retrieval. So this is the closest, and this is rooted deeply in feminine alchemy, which is the kind of teachings that I represent. So back in the day, people knew, and you see, when you start looking at symbology, everything makes sense. Because when you look at for example, the age of Pisces, right? Age of Pisces, where we have this very strong role of the church and the Pope and the Vatican, and the Pope wearing the headpiece that looks like the mouth of the fish, because the Pope in the Catholic Church is the fisherman. He's the fisher of men. What is he fishing for? He has a net because he's a fisherman. The net is cast upon the people, the soul, the soul. That's what they are interested in. This is the harvest of the souls. So when you look at it in that, and this is why in mythology, for example, when the mermaids, when they were being caught by the fishermen into the nets, and because they were so beautiful, these maidens, virgins, beautiful women with beautiful singing abilities, which is another symbolic sort of representation. So when they would have been caught by the fishermen, they would beg them to release them, and then the fishermen wouldn't want to, because they were enamored with them. They would love to keep them. And what happened to them? They died. They died. The mermaids were dying. So there was no way to be alive while being kept in a net, while being kept imprisoned. This is the metaphor. Our souls in this matrix are imprisoned, and the mechanism of trauma, the mechanisms of the zodiac, which is obviously trauma inducing because it keeps sort of putting us through certain behaviors. It creates scenarios for the code to play out, usually not in a positive way, right? Usually there is some kind of heartache, there is some kind of disappointment, there is some kind of trauma, death, etc., that we have to deal with on the way. This is not a lesson. This is a scenario. This is a malevolent, pre-planned, Machiavellian level sort of process behind it, which is literally designed for the soul to experience as much fragmentation as possible, because the more the soul is fragmented, the less we will find it possible to, well, to kind of bring that wholeness, bring that healing, because through that wholeness and healing, we are able to really connect to that world in the true way, in that true way. So you see, it's such a cunning way, it's such a sophisticated mechanism that has been used. Very important to really kind of wrap your head and know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, so that fishing net is like the matrix that's over us, and
Exactly.
We are all slowly, like the mermaids, we're not being true to who we are, and we're slowly dying, for better word. And it stops us from connecting, like you said at the very beginning when you spoke about the Jesus, when he said, like, the kingdom, the real kingdom is here, but we're with this matrix, this fishing net is stopping us from connecting to the true kingdom. And all these, like, mental health and depression is off the scale, isn't it? It's just and it's keeping that soul fragmented, isn't it? And that's what they want. And every time we link into the media or listen to other people's conversations, we're just buying into that storyline that they want to keep us dumbed down and fragmented. So oh gosh, there was another thing I wanted to ask you about. Two things that really struck me is, like, whenever I'm outside and I start to just turn towards the sun and have my eyes closed, and then what I intend to do recently is just imagine myself as this tree. My roots are going down into the earth, and then my arms and everything about me becomes the branches and the leaves, and it's like I'm connecting to the dewdrops in the air, ether, and I feel like myself as this tree. And then I notice when I've come back into the house to try and reenact it, my arms just go flat, and it's almost like our homes, because electricity and everything in the homes is keeping us a little bit dumbed down. But the sun is very powerful. But one of my things that really you woke me up about was the moon, how people still worship in the moon and but the moon has no hold on us anymore. But every time we feed it with our prayers or intentions, we're giving drip feeds of power still, aren't we? Because everyone buys into the moon, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I mean, this is one of the hardest and strongest control mechanism that I think it's one of the hardest to break, especially that this has been so intimately linked to women, and probably, you know, there are still a lot of women where, as I speak about it, they probably get upset about me saying what I'm saying, because that connection has been instilled in us so deeply. But when you think about it, you know, every single woman that's listening to it, and I know, because, you know, this is the beautiful thing, that there are many women reaching out to me saying to me, you know, I was really starting to feel that something is off with that moon, but then I heard you speak and oh my God, everything fell into place. But, you know, very often it's really nice to ask yourself, when did you get really told about worshipping the moon? Is that how you grew up? Is that what was instilled in you from birth? Or was it at some point that you've been exposed again to the new agey circles, to the moon circles, to the rituals, to the moon magic, you know, to sort of intentions at the new moon and reaping at the full moon and all that kind of nonsense? Is that where you kind of felt a bit of a need to belong, and you have followed something, right? And then really that environment has been mostly created in social media. But is it really coming from deep inside of us? Actually not. Actually not. And even in the context of our cycles as women, okay, menstruation cycles, this is not that the moon is running the show here. It is that the moon took over and is mimicking certain very deep original creation rights. The moon, yes, it has overtaken our cycle. It is not linked to our cycle. Our cycle are not following the moon. The moon has been controlling us as women, including our cycles. So we have to flip that perspective to be able to understand what truly happened here. And you know, back to that whole mind control and the streaming of the frequencies, moon plays an integral, a very important part in that whole process. It is the moon which is the closest to us, so that kind of last, if you like, last frontier of cascading of that control mechanism across the whole matrix is literally being run from the moon. It is the moon that is the last element of control in terms of that technicalities of the matrix. That's the purpose of the moon, and the ancient texts talk about it, that the moon has been fashioned into the sky. It is not a natural phenomena. It is not a natural satellite. It has been placed there. It has a function. It has a job. And it's doing it used to be doing that job very well. It's been so outstanding at it that here we are now, when the hold of the moon has been released as of 2017, and it's still very much felt, right? It's us, it's people, it's women very often who continue, like you say, they kind of continue to fire up that mechanism, even though it doesn't work anymore.
And the other thing, like when I started to speak to you, like there's all this like talk, like we've got Easter, and then we've got these eclipses and solar eclipses, and could you share a little bit like what your
Sure. So
thoughts on it?
first of all, I think I probably would like to take a little step back from everything, from all of those events, including all of those dates. You know, when you look at the last 4 years, there's been many dates, there's been many events that's been thrown around. That kind of hype is being felt throughout social media, around dates, around events, that something's gonna happen, and that tension is building up, and then nothing happens. But the funny thing is, have you noticed that, Jenny, that the funny thing is that nobody ever goes back and tries to hold anyone accountable for creating that energy vortex, for creating that chaos around whatever event, right? Last year, in the run-up to my event, I had an event in November, and I had a group pretty much signed up at the end of August for a trip in November. And some of those people started pulling out because they were claiming that, you know, in the US, something's going to happen, because that's what all these, you know, the kind of awaken propaganda was at the time telling them, that there's going to be a new lockdown, there's going to be a new this, new that, and the other. And nothing happened. And nobody was held accountable for spreading that nonsense. So we have to, this is back to what I'm saying. Everything that you see, including in the awakened media, right? All this hype, all this, whatever you're being told to pay attention to, and whatever is getting really big marketing, it's a controlled tactic. So including that goes for the eclipses, that goes for all those things. There's obviously an agenda behind it. Your attention is required, and most of the time your attention is required so that it can be diverted from something where your attention absolutely should be on. And right now it's Easter. I have a webinar on Easter, the true meaning of Easter, which is called Mysterium of Life, with the Easter being sort of wrapped into the word mysterium. Because you see, this is such an important celebration. And I'm gonna say celebration because the whole thing, of course, has been flipped by the church, and Easter is about death, whereas Easter always takes place when? In the spring, which is the mysterium of life. This is the time when the life, everything springs back to life. That's why it's called spring, because it springs back to life. This is the time where we plant seeds. So later in the year, we will sow. And when you look into the social media or any mainstream media, look and trace every single year in the past sort of 4 years of the madness, every single time, whether that's the war in Ukraine, whether that's the pandemic, whether that's the vaccines, and now we have obviously all the royals getting, you know, mystery illnesses. Every single time things are being planted at the same time. This is, and nobody's paying attention that things are being planted. What's being planted is something for you to be literally sort of massaging, because we are the creators. They do not have the ability to create, so they have to plant certain seeds into our consciousness and subconscious so that we will give them what they want, because this is the true meaning of living in accordance to the cycles. It's just that we don't understand what we should be planting. This is the time not to be planting ideas that they are trying to plant into our head. This is the time to switch off all that nonsense and stop watching the actors playing out script. This is the time to celebrate life. This is spring. This is the time to plant something else that is later going to yield effects, yield life. Plant, you know, back in the day, back in several thousand years ago, when people still, and several hundred years ago, you know, the witches, the people with wisdom, the people who still had understanding of these grand scale processes and cycles, they knew exactly the importance of this time. This is not a religious celebration. This has nothing to do with that. Again, if you go to my webinar, The Mysterium of Life, I explain very clearly the true meaning of Jesus' death at the cross and resurrection of the soul, So literally what we've been talking about, you know, shamans traveling to the underworld or traveling to other worlds to retrieve the souls. It is a filtered version of the original rites of resurrection. And resurrection, of course, it's going to happen at the time when the life is coming back from death, winter, into the spring. You see, we have lost understanding of the cycles. We have been disconnected from that wisdom. So Easter absolutely should not be about observing death and torture and agony of a man. It should be observed as a celebration of life, which it truly is, because it's the spring now, right? Everything is coming back to life. This is the time to plant. This is the time to plant what you want, not just plant physically in your garden. This is the time to plant the seeds of what you want. What we want is abundance, peace, happiness, health. This is the time. But what's happening? Our attention is being diverted into what again? Anxiety, because the eclipses, what's going to happen, and you know, all the propaganda in the social media. Please leave that. And I'm speaking to you as someone who actually knows astrology. So please do not fall into that trap. If it's being heavily supported and the marketing is being pumped into grabbing hold of your attention, it's bad news. It's time to switch off, turn around, and walk the opposite way.
Oh, thank you, Ola. Thank you. It's almost like having a recap with you. Like, come on, get focused. You know, we're here for a reason. We're here, and just I love when you said planting the seeds of serenity, of peace, of abundance, of love, of health, and that's what. And it's celebrating the return of life, isn't it? Like going back to the garden, and when I walk to work, I look at the buds coming back on the trees, and it's just a miracle. It's just absolutely miracle. And I had my head in the clouds, but then like, because people kept going on about the eclipse, I thought, oh, is there something I should know about the eclipse? And it's so refreshing to hear someone say, just walk away from all of that. Just whatever is trying to grab your attention,
Absolutely.
walk in the opposite direction, walk back out, and just really build up on that connection of the natural cycle of life. And it is, isn't it? It's like spring is the rebirth, the renewal, the growth. And then summer is the time of harvest. And then winter is letting go, autumn letting go. Winter is a time to rest, restore, replenish. And if we lived in accordance, we wouldn't be so fragmented as souls, would we? There's one other thing that's always puzzled me is when like back to the new age thing, but I don't want to go back because, you know, when I'm listening to you talk, my energy is I feel it expanding, and I'm just feeling, yeah, Ola's right. Yeah, I can feel it in me. One of the things that they say is like we all come from this one God who wants to experience life. And that's one thing that's always puzzled me about the new age, that we're all one. We're not all one, are we? Can we not all be individuals from other planets?
Well, that's the thing, you know, the feminine line. So through the feminine alchemy, you will always, the teaching actually very much focuses on individuality.
Oh,
it focuses on individuality. It actually invites you to be your own expression. You see, another very strong notion around new age, which is again misinterpretation of certain things, is this whole sort of looking at the ego, right, in a very negative way. The ego, you need to get rid of the ego. It's the, you know, the devil of the of all doctrines is the ego, right? The ego. And the east has gone also in the direction. But the ego is actually something that leaves your individuality. And of course, I'm not talking about the ego as in, you know, being an asshole and being some kind of arrogant person. That's not what we're talking about. But we're talking about the kind of level of individuality, keeping that individuality. And the feminine line has always been about remaining individuality. And I will tell you more, and that may surprise you, because we are so in a way brainwashed to believe that, you know, this whole notion of women's circles, sisterhoods, right? Like women coming together, doing things together. Maybe they do, maybe they did, but that's not the true original meaning of sisterhood. It's actually women would have practiced and they would have propagated individuality. So not necessarily doing things because contrary to what you might think, it is not exactly that coming together, 10 of us, is creating some bigger momentum than each 10 doing things separately. That's the thing. And you know why that is? Because the true meaning, the original alchemical meaning of sisterhood, has nothing to do with women coming physically together around the table or around the fire and dancing. And, you know, this is what New Age propagates. Sisterhood, the true meaning of sisterhood, is the connection of all women and all feminine beings, not just women, all feminine beings across everywhere, basically, through the Sophia, through the wisdom of our womb, through the womb. It is the connection of the wombs. It is the connection of the fact that we are all representatives of the feminine, of the creative force. That's the true meaning of sisterhood. And it has nothing to do with women needing to physically come together and do something together, because then the power is magnified. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It is actually when every woman, because you see, when women come together and start doing some kind of rituals, first of all, this is being in your mind. You have lost the element of, or well, not just originality, but it's literally as simple as, we are here to create. Creation, creativity is original personal process. So if we come together and start doing the same things, we're duplicating. Where is creation? Where is creativity? Where is the individuality, right? So yeah, maybe women would sit together and do things together for company, but never in a context that it in some way enhances their power.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. I was listening to what was the other thing? Yeah. So oh, you've given me so much information again, Ola. You really have. And one of the things I was just, when you said, like, you answered one of my questions, like, why are we here? And what I felt in my heart was, we're here to create, aren't we? We are the creators. And when you said all the females, I was like, yeah, the dogs, the seals, the elephants, the tigers, the lions, all the females. We're here,
Exactly.
creation, because we're all part of this web, aren't we? This web of life.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
absolutely right.
And
and this is where animism comes in, as in everything in this world has a soul or has some kind of consciousness, right? Because and that's still the belief that's kept, again, in those tribes, groups that are still cultivating this line of old days wisdom. So whether that's the stone, a tree, it's not a belief, it's an awareness, it's an obvious understanding. This is, you know, this is not something to choose to believe or not, or represent or not. It's almost like, when you know, you know. So yes, when you understand what's the true web of life, that we are part of the web of life, that this matrix desperately tried to cut us off, so they've created a web of death to sort of pull us out from the web of life. They literally, they overlaid web of death over the web of life. But now this time is so special, it's so significant, because the web of life is coming back on stream, but it's our doing. It's us that needs to enable and participate in this process. This is not the time to sit back and wait for somebody to come and save us. Nobody's coming. We are the ones that we're waiting for.
Yeah. And oh gosh, like I hear you, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm getting it, Ola, I'm getting it. it is that it's not whether we believe it or not believe it. Animism is the original, and when we connect with that and understanding, then this matrix starts to crumble, doesn't it? When we start to remember who we truly are and truly our connection, because we have been isolated, hasn't it? Like we were taught something completely different in school, like right from nurseries, from when we empower another person to look after a child. It's drip feed into them that this is like, the sky is blue, the grass is green, you know, we go to work, this is what life's all about. But that is not what this place of reality and what we're living on is very enchanting. And I went back and I watched Avatar, like you said, and my daughter would say, like, oh, mum's like the new Avatar, where she's always like away with the birds and away with the trees and connecting. And that's where I felt when I was growing up, encouraged to go outside and play. I was encouraged. And so I used to lay underneath a tree and watch the sky, and I could hear the wind, I could hear the tree, I could hear, and that was my reality, that was my truth. And that magic has been taken away, but it's not anymore, because that's what the prophecies are saying. It's like that veil is like really starting to crumble. And, you know, it's almost like when you do tune into what's on the telly, it's almost like that's crumbling. The storyline that we're being fed is kind of like crumbling. So we really have to, like, when I said to you before we started, one of the things you said was like, when 2020 happened, a lot of us was like, felt it in us that it didn't seem right, but we didn't read it in a book. We didn't go to social media. We wasn't told. We felt it. And like you said, we've got to go back into our womb. Like one of the original conversations we had is like, stop being focused on our third eye, go inwards. And I've noticed, because I had an accident where I lost my tooth. And when I had to have the implant put in, I just closed my eyes, and it was almost like seeing the spiral staircase going into my womb, where I went into this cave within my body, where this woman, which obviously was me, was greeting me, and she held me, and being held in the cave within myself, the pain, I didn't experience the pain. And I think that's what taught me just how powerful we are. We have this power that in us.
Absolutely. And you see, this is so important what you've just said, because people think that I think we sometimes do not see the forest through the trees. When we talk about the matrix, how are we caught in the matrix? Where is the matrix? The matrix is the mind. The matrix is the mind, and we are caught in the mind in so many ways. You know, this whole notion of glorifying the mind, right? It's the IQ. Nobody cares about the emotions. It's the IQ. Show me your CV, show me your education, show me what you know, show me what you've learned. Programming, right? That's the mind as well. The conditioning, any conditioning, anything that's being sort of put upon us and it's being glorified, it's the mind, right? It's here where it's all happening. Whereas and that's the problem, because when I tell people about sort of leaving the mind, very often a lot of people will say, no, I'm not in my mind, I'm in my heart. You have no idea how much you're caught in your mind. The fact that you're intellectualizing certain things, the fact that you're reacting in a certain things, the fact that you're in your, you know, in certain sort of behaviors that you think that you have to compete, the fact that you think that you have to do some rituals, the fact that you think that you have to tell affirmations, the fact that you think that you have to follow a certain process when doing feminine alchemy. You're in your mind. You're in your mind. So this is how sort of the grasp of this matrix is so deep. Whereas what we totally take for granted, and in a way I think we discredit, is the feeling function. And by feeling, I mean, you see, what the gods, the archons, what they are jealous of is the fact that we can feel. They're not jealous whether we can see some auras, whether we have the third eye, whether we can do astral projection or whatever. these are actually to do with the mind. That's nothing special. That they can duplicate that, and that's not even where
AI.
you know what the stakes are. The stakes are about the feeling function. It's the feeling. It's not the emotions, it's the feeling. It's that sense of feeling, because when we go to the nature and we feel and we connect, and it makes us cry because it's such an amazing experience, that's the feeling that they never can replicate. They cannot enter that state because they are disconnected from that. They've cut off, because you need to have a soul for that. So you see, and their soul has been so shattered that it's a mess. It's a total mess. At that point, they have lost that ability. So what we tend to aspire to are the third eye capacities, are the mind abilities. Oh, I want to, whatever, read someone's mind, and I want to have these abilities and those abilities, and I want this and that and the other. Everything is in the mind. Whereas our true cutting edge sort of over that kind of capacity that we have above the gods is in the feeling. It's in the feeling, and that feeling can guide us.
And I think, like, one of the things is, like, rather than trying to figure out what reality is, because that puts us back in our mind, just stop and just simply feel.
Absolutely. So you see, this is why I say be very careful, because out there propaganda is on both sides. So all this the earth is flat, no, it's round, no, it's a crater, no, it's this and that. Oh, there's resets every so many years, no, it's every so many years. Oh, the true meaning of this is like this, no, it's like that. And these are all, this is all playground of the awakened, and they will sit on Facebook or whatever else platform, and they will argue about every single thing. And guess who's watching, and
the gods
enjoying and loving. Absolutely. Because as long as we are continuing to pursue the mind tricks and whatnot, the more we are exactly playing the kind of game that they want us to play. This is why I say disengage. And that's why I said, at the beginning, when you mentioned Sam, right, saying that we should just go out. Absolutely, we should go out. But before you go out, understand this whole picture. Understand the whole picture, because if you go out, then you come back arguing with people about the flat earth or whatever, then you may as well just sit at home and do that, because it just doesn't work.
Brilliant. I feel like you've answered everything, and it's almost like being just a refreshing reminder of what the power is within us. And it is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the simplicity is just unplug from that reality and just plug back into the reality of nature. But that is part and parcel of every day, and our own little life, our own little family, our own is all that is our world. It's not the out there, it's our own inner world. One of the things also I've been chatting to other people about is, like, our ancestors and our connection. So if we could just end on that note. In some ways I don't, because what you've given tonight is just been so empowering and such a gem of, like, I just feel like I'm holding a ball of golden light. That's what you've given me tonight. It's just been amazing. You always blow me away, and I know people absolutely adore you, because you're just a breath of fresh air and normal. And it makes me feel like I am normal, because I don't do all these weird and wacky ritual things and dance around things. But our ancestors are always near us, aren't they? Would you say? And our connection to them is just as important as our connection to this land, would you say? What's your thoughts?
I think it's there is this sort of context of who are the ancestors, right? What are these stories? What are these stories, and how far do they go? I mean, what's the relevance of those stories in feminine alchemy? I guess the women would always say the only important thing is here and now, because that's the only thing that you actually experience, right? Everything else is, can I prove something? Can I prove that in my past life I was this and that? I mean, maybe I can read my chart and maybe there is some indication, but is that truly what happened, or is that something that has been written into me? So, you know, in a sense, the alchemy says that what we are now today is the quintessence, is already the collection of everything and everyone that we have to be. So it's already here in us. And, you know, from my perspective, isn't that the most important? Isn't that what's in your hand, right? Isn't that what we are dealing with? Other certain mystical forces or spirits of nature, or other spirits, as in, you know, mind you, we live in a very limited sort of, by our perception, world. So the fact that we see other physical beings, that's actually a very limited perception, that's a very limited view. Are there any other? Of course there are. And that's nothing to believe in. That's actually a natural, a person with some capacity to you know, question things and just be discerning. That should be a natural sort of conclusion, that of course there is something else. Are we sort of part of that ecosystem? Of course we are. We have a job, they have a job. On some things we interface, on some things we work together. So our ancestors or our forefathers, foremothers, they would have been aware of those connections. They would have been doing the work. We're called to do similar work. We're called to reestablish these connections, because right now, you know, this sort of end of this world is actually playing out not only in this plane, it's playing out across other planes as well, because everyone's affected. Remember, Norse mythology beautifully shows the Yggdrasil, right? The different worlds, and the fact that even within the middle world where we exist as humans, there are several other worlds. The nature spirits, the elves, etc. So there are other worlds, and other beings are affected, very much affected by the current processes. But we are quite integral, because we happen to be in this world, and especially we as women, as the holders of the womb, we are the creators. But we're not only the creators, we are also you know, the three aspects of alchemy. We are maidens, we are creators, and we are witches. We are the shamans. We are the ones that transform things. So each of these aspects has its own purpose, and they are entwined together. You cannot have one without the other. They are all entwined. They kind of fed through the aspect of a maiden, because the aspect of a maiden is how we get even charged with the essence, alchemical essence. But that's, I don't want to go into a whole lecture about it. But where I'm going with it is that, you see, as a woman, it is so important, specifically because we are the ones who have the womb. So whether you do understand alchemy, whether you do follow alchemy, or maybe you don't, you're still a woman, you're still a shaman, you're still a creator, and you're still a mother. So that ability to connect and to feel and to escape this fake world, and to, because you see, that's what I'm saying, the most important thing in alchemy is authenticity, as in your own experience, your own individual experience, not that I or someone else will guide you and tell you what you need to feel, but literally taking the time for yourself, putting yourself first. That's not called selfish. You know, that's called love, and that is called understanding that you are the bearer of the Holy Grail, and this is the time where the Holy Grail needs to be reactivated. So actually, please do us all a favor and do that. So spending time with yourself, but truly connecting and feeling whatever it is that you feel. You might be very surprised, because in this time, a lot of women, most women, that are called and sort of drawn to these things, just to going out and being with themselves. Truly what's happening, you may not fully know, you may not know the vocabulary for it and the terminology, and perhaps you may not know exactly alchemically what's happening, but something's happening through you and within you, and that is the promise. That is the promise for the time ahead.
And that's how we're going to end it. Elegantly, beautifully said. I'm not even going to try and recapture what you said, Ola. That was absolutely a beautiful, and I think that's what that is the prophecy, isn't it?
That is the prophecy. That
is the prophecy.
That is the prophecy.
Yeah. Beautiful. Ola, thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure.
It's amazing. Thank you everyone for listening. I'm going to put Ola's website in the link below, how you can reach out to her and connect. Highly recommend. I've had 2 consultations with Ola. I'd love to go to Norway one day. It's one of the places I think in this world that I feel very drawn to, apart from England as well, because I left England and came back. Reach out to Ola, breath of fresh air, listen to all her other videos with her chats with other people. Amazing lady. Ola, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you everybody for listening, for staying all the way till now, if anybody managed to do that. Thank you so much, and absolute pleasure anytime.
Thank you. Right, so good night for me. I'm just going to end the video. So yeah, until next time, take care everyone. Lots of love.
Good night, everybody.
Mm-hmm.